10 positive habits that will rewire your mindset. There is a version of your life playing in the background, quiet, unnoticed, but woven into every decision you make. It is neither planned nor conscious yet. It directs your mood, your confidence, your choices. It is the invisible script inside your mind. You wake up and follow its patterns. You doubt yourself before a sunrise. You accept fear as companion before a challenge. You do not know how you got here, but you feel stuck. And in that stuckness, most people whisper, "I just do not have time," or "I cannot help the way I feel." But what if that script is not immutable? What if it is made of habits, and habits can be rewritten? You are not broken. You are hypnotized. Hypnotized to habits that no longer serve your growth, but hide you from it. Your inner dialogue recycles old failures as warnings, and your daily routines feed your limitations, disguised as safety. Yet beneath the judgments and the heaviness is a longing to be more. You breathe because you must. You live because they expect you to, but living fully awake, intentional, fearless is possible. Not in another life, another day, another version of yourself. Here now. I have written this book in the voice of someone who has walked through the fog, who built new habits even when fear whispered louder than courage. I know how easy it is to repeat what you know, even when it holds you back. I know what it feels like to change a belief, then fall back into the same trap. That cycle ends not by pushing harder, but by choosing differently. There is a way to rewire your mindset, not through one heroic effort, but through small, consistent habits that change your brain, your belief, your path. At the root of this transformation is one philosophy. Habits are the architecture of your inner world, and your mindset is the landscape it builds. When you adopt positive habits, you begin to reshape not only what you do, but how you think. A mindset rooted in clarity, courage, and creation emerges. That mindset does not depend on external validation or perfect conditions. It thrives on daily choices, not massive actions, but steady ones. This book lays out 10 such habits. Each habit is a brick in the foundation of a renewed inner life. You will not find quick fixes or tricks to gain motivation. You will find principles and practices grounded, psychological, emotional, that reshape your interior environment. These habits are not about adding more to your plate. They are about peeling away what distracts, what diminishes, what erodes your energy. You will learn how to reset your relationship to fear, focus, failures, habits of thought, emotional reactions, and personal standards. This is not about becoming someone else. It is about remembering who you truly are underneath the noise. Each habit will guide you closer to your essence, clearer mind, calmer heart, braver actions. The outer results will follow naturally: better relationships, deeper growth, more purpose. But first comes the inner alignment, and that is the revolutionary shift. Even now, you may feel resistance. You may say, "I do not have the discipline." Fine, this journey is not about discipline at the start. It is about intention. One small habit at a time, one moment of awareness, one choice. Over time, these habits will rewrite your script so deeply that the old story no longer makes sense. Who you will become is already written in how you choose today. Let us begin. Habit 1 awaits the spark that begins the transformation. This is your chance to step off autopilot and into authorship of your own mind. Your mindset can be rewired, and it begins with one positive habit. Chapter 1. From Chaos to Clarity. There was a time when I woke up with 1,000 voices in my head, all pulling me in different directions. Check your phone. Respond to that email. You are already behind. It felt like I was running before I even opened my eyes. That quiet moment between sleep and consciousness where peace should live was hijacked by noise. And I know I am not alone. Most people do not start their day starts them. Before they even remember who they are, the world reminds them of what they lack. That is not living, that is surviving. And the reason many people never rise above their current life is because they begin every morning in reaction instead of intention. The first habit that rewires the mind is deceptively simple. Begin your day in silence. Not with your phone, not with news, not even with a to-do list. Begin with you. That means before you allow the world to influence your thoughts, you must anchor your own. A morning mindset ritual is not just a productivity hack. It is a sacred act of ownership. When you wake up and immediately flood your senses with stimulation, your brain becomes a battlefield. Your attention is scattered, your emotions reactive, and your energy fragmented. But when you begin with stillness, breath, and awareness, something shifts. You move from chaos to clarity. People get stuck because they underestimate the power of mornings. They think I will get focused later, but later never comes. The tone of your day is often set in the first 20 minutes after waking. That is when your subconscious is most open. Your mind is most pliable, your decisions most defining. If you fill that window with negativity, you prime yourself for stress. If you fill it with intention, you prime yourself for power. This is not magic, it is neuroscience. The brain rewires itself based on repetition and emotion. A deliberate morning habit creates a rhythm of renewal that sharpens your focus and elevates your emotional state. Imagine a man who begins each day by sitting with himself even for just 5 minutes. He closes his eyes, breathes deeply, and reminds himself of who he chooses to be. He does not check the world, he checks within. In that space, he reclaims his mind from the noise. He says, "Today I lead with calm. Today I act with strength. Today I honor what matters." Now compare him to the man who wakes up and instantly scrolls through chaos, comparing his life to strangers, reacting to every notification. One man is creating, the other is consuming. One is living by design, the other by default. You do not need an hour-long meditation to start. You need a decision, a promise to yourself. Before I give my mind to the world, I give it to myself. That could look like breath work. That could be journaling a single truth. That could be asking, what do I want this day to feel like? The technique is less important than the intention. What matters is the sacred space where you remember you are not just a participant in life. You are the author of it. Why is this so hard for people to implement? Because we are addicted to noise. Silence is uncomfortable at first. It reveals the parts of ourselves we usually drown in distraction. But that discomfort is a doorway. What you find on the other side of silence is clarity. And clarity is rare. It makes you dangerous in a world addicted to confusion. When you know who you are and what you stand for before the day begins, no amount of chaos can steal your center. Let me be honest, this habit will feel unnatural at first. You will forget. You will reach for your phone, you will want to skip it. But keep going. Consistency is more important than intensity. A few minutes every morning compounds over time into unshakable self-awareness. That is how you build a mindset that serves you instead of sabotages you, not by doing more, but by remembering who is in control. Eventually, something beautiful happens. You stop reacting to life and start responding with intention. You stop fearing the day and start shaping it. You stop drowning in noise and start hearing your own voice again. That voice, the one that has been buried under years of programming and fear, it is still there, and it is ready to lead. If you have listened this far, chances are you are like me, no longer willing to live a life that just drifts by. Take a moment to reflect. How do you begin your day? Who gets your mind first, your soul or the world? Answer this in the comments below, because how you begin shapes everything that follows. And if this message resonated, share it with someone who might need to hear it. You never know. Your share could be the seed of someone else's transformation. And make sure to subscribe to the channel so you do not miss the rest of this journey. Chapter 2. Replacing reaction with responsibility. There is a moment we all recognize, though few admit it, When something goes wrong, and without thinking, we point outward. The traffic made me late. My boss stressed me out. My childhood ruined me. My partner never listens. The list is endless. And so is the suffering it creates. Because when you live in reaction, you give your power away. You become a puppet pulled by circumstance rather than a creator grounded in choice. The second habit that rewires your mind is not glamorous. It will not make headlines, but it will change everything. Radical personal responsibility. I learned this the hard way. Years ago, I was consumed by resentment. Every failed plan had a villain. Every broken dream had a scapegoat. I lived in constant frustration because the world never matched my expectations. One day, a mentor said to me, "You are not upset because of what they did. You are upset because you are refusing to own your part." At first, I was offended. Then I was awakened. That one sentence rewired something in me. I realized if I keep blaming the world, I have to wait for it to change. But if I take ownership, I can change right now. Most people are trained to avoid responsibility because they confuse it with blame, but they are not the same. Blame is about shame. Responsibility is about power. When you say, "I take responsibility for my life," you are not saying everything was your fault. You are saying, "I refuse to be a prisoner of it." That shift from reaction to response is where your freedom begins. You stop being a victim of your story and become the author of your future. But why do people resist this habit? Because it hurts. It stings the ego. It demands we stop justifying mediocrity and start confronting our decisions. But that pain is sacred. It is the labor of rebirth. When you begin to look at your life and say, "This is mine to shape," you reclaim the power most people spend their lives avoiding. You stop outsourcing your joy, your peace, your worth. You stop waiting for apologies, for permission, for perfect timing. You become the kind of person who leads their life, not merely survives it. Imagine this. Two people experience the same setback. One says, "This always happens to me. Why can I never catch a break?" The other says, "This hurts. But what is mine to learn here? How can I grow through this?" One remains stuck. The other transforms. The difference is not intelligence or background. It is responsibility. The ability to respond. That is where the rewiring begins. This habit is practical. It is not just a mindset, it is a daily practice. When you feel triggered, ask, "What am I responsible for right now?" When you face disappointment, ask, "What can I choose next?" When you fail, instead of collapsing into shame, lean into curiosity. What belief led me here? What action can shift this pattern? Every situation becomes a classroom, every emotion a compass, every day a chance to reclaim authorship over your life. You will know this habit is working when you no longer seek people to blame but lessons to absorb. You will feel your inner world soften. Less anger, less helplessness, more clarity, more peace. Because you are no longer waiting for the world to be fair. You are choosing to be free. Let me say this clearly. Responsibility is not a burden. It is a blessing. It means you are not stuck. It means the story is not finished. It means that even if you did not choose the pain, you get to choose the meaning. And that meaning will shape everything that comes next. So let today be the line in the sand. No more hiding behind old narratives. No more waiting for someone to fix what you were born to face. You are not here to repeat your past. You are here to rewrite it, not through one grand act, but through the quiet habit of taking ownership. One choice at a time, one truth at a time. That is how you rewire your life, by reclaiming every moment as your own. Chapter 3. The Language of Self-Talk. There is a voice inside you that speaks more than anyone else in your life. It is not your partner, your parents, your friends, or your critics. It is you talking to yourself. And most people do not realize how cruel that voice has become. They brush their teeth while whispering failure. They walk into meetings doubting their value. They scroll through social media saying, "I will never be that good," and they call it normal, but it is not. It is poison wrapped in familiarity. And if you do not change the way you speak to yourself, you will never change the way you experience your life. The third habit that rewires your mind is this: transform your self-talk from criticism to command. Because your brain believes the words you repeat, your mind is not neutral. It records it, replays it, programs. Every insult you tell yourself becomes a filter. Every time you say, "I am not good enough," your mind files that away as truth. Over time, you do not even need to say it out loud. It becomes a belief that shapes your decisions, your energy, your destiny. I used to live with that voice. It followed me everywhere. Before I tried anything new, it whispered, "You are not ready." When I made a mistake, it shouted, "Of course you failed. You always do." Even in moments of success, it reminded me of what was missing. I was not being punished. I was being programmed. And the worst part, I believed it. I believed I had to be hard on myself to improve. But the truth is, you do not heal a wound by stabbing it over and over again. People get stuck because they confuse humility with self-hate. They think being self-aware means being self-critical. But those are not the same. Self-awareness says, "I see where I can grow." Self-hate says, "I will never be enough." One leads to progress, the other to paralysis. The shift begins when you decide that your inner voice must become your greatest coach, not your harshest critic. You would never talk to a friend the way you talk to yourself. So why do you think your soul deserves less compassion than a stranger? Your words create worlds. If you keep saying you are tired, your body will shut down. If you keep saying you are stuck, your mind will stop looking for doors. But if you start saying, "I am capable of finding a way," something shifts. Your brain begins to search. Your energy begins to move. That is not delusion. That is design. Neuroscience shows that positive affirmations spoken consistently begin to rewire neural pathways. Over time, the voice of fear fades, and the voice of courage gets louder. This habit is not about lying to yourself. It is about leading yourself. When the old voice says you are not good enough, you respond with, "I am growing stronger every day." When it says you always fail, you respond, "Every failure is a lesson I can use." You replace judgment with direction. You replace shame with strategy. You begin to treat yourself like someone worth fighting for. I challenge you for the next 7 days, monitor every thought that arises when you face a challenge. If the thought is demeaning, pause, breathe. Replace it with a command rooted in truth, not perfection progress, not fantasy focus. Watch what happens. You will feel lighter, sharper, more in control, not because life got easier, but because your mind got clearer. Eventually, this habit becomes instinct. The voice that once tore you down becomes the one that lifts you up. You become your own anchor in storms, your own light in dark places. And that is when your mindset begins to transform, not just in theory, but in daily practice. You speak like a leader. You act like a creator. You live like someone who knows they matter. If you are still here, it means you are ready to change the way you relate to yourself. Take one moment right now and answer this. What is the one phrase you say to yourself that keeps you small? Write it in the comments. Then write the new phrase you are choosing instead. Declare it. Because when you speak a new truth, you plant the seed of a new identity. And if this helped you, like and share this message. Someone else needs to hear it, and you might be the one to remind them they are more than their inner critic. Subscribe to stay on this path. We are just getting started. Chapter 4. The Habit of Emotional Mastery. There is a moment that determines the course of every relationship, every opportunity, every outcome in your life. It is not the moment when things go as planned. It is the moment when they do not. Someone offends you, life delays you, the plan crumbles. And in that space between what happens and how you react lies the difference between growth and regression. Most people live in that gap unconsciously. They snap, they shut down, they avoid, and they call it personality. But it is not who they are. It is a habit, a pattern, a nervous system loop that can be changed. And that change begins with emotional mastery. Emotional mastery does not mean you do not feel. It means you no longer become a prisoner to those feelings. I used to think my emotions controlled me. One insult and I was in a spiral for days. One failure and I questioned everything. I believed the lie that said, if I feel it, it must be true. But emotion is not truth. Emotion is a signal, and every signal is an invitation to react or to respond. When you start seeing emotion as information, not identity, you gain power, not over others, over yourself. Why do people stay stuck in emotional reactivity? Because they were never taught how to feel without being ruled. In school, we learn math and grammar, but not how to process rage or guilt or grief. So we stuff it, or we explode, and over time we become emotionally fragile or emotionally numb. Both are symptoms of the same root disconnection from our power to choose. The habit that rewires this pattern is simple but life-changing. Pause before emotion becomes reaction. That pause can be one breath, one question, one moment of awareness. In that pause, you become the witness instead of the weapon. You ask yourself, what is really going on here? Is this about them or about me? What do I actually want to create in this moment? That kind of inner conversation turns chaos into clarity, and clarity into action. Let me give you an example. A man walks into work already frustrated by traffic. His coworker makes a joke innocent but poorly timed. Without the habit, the man snaps back, escalating a moment into a conflict. But with the habit, he breathes, notices the irritation, and names it silently. I am not angry at him. I am frustrated because I feel behind. In that awareness, he softens. He responds instead of reacting. One habit, different outcome, not just in work, but in marriage, parenting, leadership, everywhere. This habit also teaches you to feel fully. Emotional mastery is not suppression. It is expression with wisdom. When sadness arises, you do not shove it down. You hold space for it, then ask, what is this sadness asking me to notice? Maybe it is asking for rest, or connection, or forgiveness. When anger shows up, you listen. Is it pointing to a boundary crossed, a value ignored? You feel the emotion, but you do not hand it the steering wheel. You remain the driver. Over time, this habit transforms your identity. You stop being someone with a temper or someone who shuts down. You become someone who responds from strength. People begin to trust your presence. They feel safer around you. And most importantly, you feel safer within yourself. You no longer fear your own feelings. You learn to guide them like a skilled pilot through turbulence, not because you avoid storms, but because you no longer fear them. If this resonates, I want you to reflect. What is one emotion that often controls you? Is it anger, fear, guilt, sadness, overwhelm? Identify it. Write it down, then ask, what is that emotion usually trying to protect or teach me? Comment below. Let your awareness be the beginning of your mastery. And if you found value in this, share it with someone who is ready to take back the driver's seat of their life. Remember to subscribe, because the next habit will take this even deeper, and your future is built one choice at a time. Chapter 5. The Discipline of Focus. There is a quiet war happening every day, a war for your attention. Your phone lights up. A message pulls you in, a headline shocks you, a scroll becomes an hour, and without knowing it, your most precious resource, your focus, is being stolen, not just by algorithms, but by habits you have normalized. The average person is not lazy. They are simply scattered. Their energy is sliced into 1,000 pieces, none of them deep, none of them lasting. And in that fragmented attention, dreams are delayed. Talents are wasted. Joy is diluted. The fifth habit that rewires your mind is this: the discipline to focus on what matters and delete what does not. When I was younger, I believed the lie that multitasking was a strength. I prided myself on doing 5 things at once until I realized I was doing all of them poorly. I was busy but not productive, active but not effective. And worst of all, I was exhausted. My mind had become a noisy room with too many voices, and none of them mine. The turning point came when I decided to treat my focus like a sacred currency. Every decision became a question. Is this draining me or directing me? People get stuck here because they are addicted to stimulation. They mistake noise for momentum. They believe that being constantly in motion is a sign of success. But motion without direction is chaos. True growth is not about doing more. It is about doing the right things deeply with your full presence. That kind of focus is rare and powerful. It turns average into mastery. It turns scattered time into structured impact. To build this habit, you must first identify your leaks. Where does your focus go? When you are tired, when you are bored, when you are afraid of doing the real work. For some, it is social media. For others, it is gossip, busy work, or numbing routines. None of these are evil, but left unchecked, they become a slow erosion of your purpose. Awareness is the beginning, not shame awareness. Next comes discipline, not the rigid kind fueled by guilt, but the empowering kind fueled by clarity. Set time for focus like you would a meeting with someone important, because your future is the most important meeting you have. Remove distractions, turn off notifications, create a space that signals to your brain, this matters. Then do one thing, just one, not 5, not 3, one, and do it until it is done. You will feel resistance. That is normal. Your brain is used to the dopamine of novelty. It will crave a quick check, a tiny scroll, a different task. But in those moments, breathe, return to your breath, return to the task. Each return is a rep. You are training your focus like a muscle, and over time, it gets stronger. This habit rewires more than your mind. It rewires your identity. You begin to trust yourself again. You begin to feel momentum not from busyness, but from depth. The joy of finishing, the pride of progress, the peace of knowing you were fully present in what mattered. That is a different kind of success. It is quieter, but far more fulfilling. I challenge you to commit to 1 hour of deep focus every day. 1 hour where your phone is off, your environment is clear, and your intention is set. Protect that hour like it is sacred, because it is. That hour is where your dreams are built, where your character is shaped, where your legacy begins. And now I ask you to reflect. What is the biggest distraction stealing your focus lately? What would happen if you reclaimed that time starting today? Share your answer in the comments. You never know who might resonate with your story. If this message brought clarity to you, like and share it. Someone else is fighting the same war for their focus, and your voice might remind them that victory is possible. Subscribe to the channel so we can keep building together. Your discipline will shape your destiny. Chapter 6. The Practice of Gratitude That Rewires Pain. Some days the weight is so heavy you forget how to breathe. You wake up and it feels like the same story is playing on repeat. Same struggles, same silence, same feeling of not enough. You look around and it seems like everyone else is moving forward while you are stuck in place, digging your heels into a life that barely feels like your own. I know that feeling. It is the ache of trying so hard to be okay when your soul is exhausted from pretending. But buried beneath that ache is a secret the world rarely teaches. Gratitude is not a luxury, it is a lifeline. The 6th habit that rewires your mind is the deliberate daily practice of gratitude, not as a feel-good cliche, but as a weapon against despair. Because gratitude is not just about being thankful for the good, it is about reclaiming power over what once tried to break you. It is how you tell the darkness, "You do not own me anymore." And that shift, small as it may seem, begins the rewiring of your most painful beliefs. I remember a season in my life when everything felt like it was falling apart. Finances were tight, relationships were cracking. The mirror became a place of self-reproach, not self-love. But one morning in the middle of that chaos, I began writing one sentence I am grateful for, and I forced myself to finish it. At first, it felt forced, trivial, even fake, but I kept going. I am grateful for the breath in my lungs. I am grateful for the lesson hidden in this pain. I am grateful that I am still here even when I want to run. Day after day, that list became my lifeline. It did not fix everything overnight, but it rewired the way I saw everything. And that changed me more than any external fix ever could. Most people stay stuck in pain because they only validate what hurts. They repeat what is missing. They magnify the injustice. And while that may feel true, it becomes a lens that blurs every blessing. Gratitude is the habit that clears that lens. It does not deny the hard. It dignifies the strength it took to survive it. It reminds you that joy and struggle can exist in the same breath and that you still get to choose what you magnify. Gratitude activates parts of the brain responsible for regulating emotion, improving sleep, and deepening relationships. But beyond the science is the soul of it. When you learn to see beauty where you once saw only burden, you reclaim the authorship of your own spirit. You become less reactive, more intentional, less bitter, more awake. That is the transformation most people crave, but they are looking for it in success, in status, in escape. It begins here, in the quiet noticing of what is already yours. Let me be clear. This habit is not about pretending everything is okay. It is about seeing clearly that some things are, even if it is just the sunlight on your skin, the breath in your lungs, the fact that you got back up today when you wanted to stay down. That kind of gratitude does not make you weaker. It makes you indestructible, because when life cannot take away your ability to appreciate it, cannot take away your power. This practice is simple. At the end of each day, write down 3 things you are grateful for, not vague but specific. Train your eyes to see what your fear overlooked. Write it even when it feels hard, especially then. Over time, your mind begins to scan for beauty instead of danger, for blessings instead of burdens, and your life starts to reflect what you have been willing to honor. Eventually, you will look back and realize nothing outside you had to change in order for you to rise. It was the habit of remembering what mattered, the habit of shifting your attention, the habit of feeding your soul with truth instead of trauma. Gratitude did not remove the storm, it built you a shelter inside it. If you are listening to this now, I want to ask you, what is one thing today that you are grateful for, even in the middle of everything that is hard? Write it in the comments below. Let someone else witness your strength. And if this message brought a spark to your day, like and share it. We are all carrying something, but gratitude makes it lighter. Subscribe to stay connected. This is the path of transformation, and we are walking it together. Chapter 7. Becoming the guardian of your environment. There is a silent influence shaping your every choice, your every thought, your every belief, and you barely notice it. It is the room you sit in, the voices you allow in, the energy that surrounds you when you are too tired to resist it. Environment. It molds you more than motivation ever could. You can have the clearest goals, the deepest intentions, the most powerful vision for your life, but if your environment contradicts it, you will constantly feel like you are swimming upstream. That is why the 7th habit that rewires your mind is this: curate your environment to reflect the future, not your past. For years, I wondered why I kept falling into the same patterns. I would read a powerful book, get inspired for a few days, then find myself back in the same loops. Procrastination, self-doubt, emotional triggers. Until I realized I was trying to plant new seeds in toxic soil. My environment, the places, the people, the media, the unspoken rules around me, was not neutral. It was shaping my default state. And until I changed that, no amount of internal willpower could sustain the transformation I was fighting for. Most people stay stuck not because they lack discipline, but because they are loyal to an environment that keeps them small. They are surrounded by people who speak the language of limitation. They decorate their homes with clutter and chaos. Their digital space is filled with comparison, distraction, and noise. And they tell themselves, "I will rise above it." But even the strongest seed will wither in the wrong soil. You do not just need ambition, you need alignment. Changing your environment begins with awareness. Look around. Does this space reflect the person I am becoming, or does it anchor me to the person I used to be? When you sit at your desk, do you feel clarity or overwhelm? When you open your phone, do you feel empowered or anxious? When you spend time with certain people, do you leave inspired or drained? These questions are not petty, they are sacred, because every element of your environment is either nourishing your growth or starving it. The next step is intentional design. That does not mean luxury, it means alignment, a space that breathes calm, a digital world curated for growth, conversations that elevate, books within reach, music that heals, words that remind you, boundaries that protect you. Even a small shift, a clean corner, a handwritten quote, a new voice in your life can create a ripple in your entire mindset. It is not about perfection. It is about energy, and energy is real. Let me give you an example. I once mentored a young woman who struggled deeply with self-worth. Her room was chaotic piles of unwashed clothes, papers scattered, reminders of a life she no longer wanted. I asked her to do one thing: clean her space as if her future self was moving in. She resisted, but then piece by piece she shifted her environment, and something inside her began to change. Not because of the cleaning, but because of the choice to no longer live in a space that mirrored her pain. Her outer world changed, and her inner world followed. This habit also includes people. You are not required to maintain relationships that keep you from growing. You can love someone and still choose to love yourself enough to create space. Emotional loyalty should never cost you your mental clarity. Choose friends who challenge your potential, not just comfort your past. Choose mentors who hold you to a higher standard. Choose silence over gossip. Choose intention over familiarity. Eventually, your environment becomes your ally. It reflects back to you the truth you are building. You walk into your space and feel supported, not sabotaged. You open your apps and find wisdom, not noise. You answer the phone and hear encouragement, not drama. This is not luck. This is design, and you are the architect. So I ask you, what is one part of your environment you know is keeping you small? Is it your space, your feed, your circle? Name it, then share in the comments what you are willing to shift this week. One change, one choice, because your future cannot grow in the soil of your past, and it is time to give it room to rise. If this message stirred something in you, share it. Let it be a mirror and a message for someone else. And subscribe so we can keep building the kind of world that feeds the mind, the heart, and the soul. Chapter 8, The Power of Purposeful Action. There is a heavy fog that settles over a life unlived. You feel it not in the big failures, but in the small moments when you know you could have moved and did not. You carry that weight in your shoulders, your sleep, your silence. It is not that you are lazy. It is that you are uncertain. You are waiting for clarity, for confidence, for permission. And so you overthink. You hesitate, and the days pass like clouds over a locked window. But there is a truth that shatters this paralysis. Clarity is not found in thought. It is found in action. The 8th habit that rewires your mind is the discipline of purposeful action, doing before you feel ready and trusting that movement creates momentum. Most people believe they need more motivation to begin, but the truth is motivation is the result, not the cause. Action is what awakens belief. Action is what rewires fear. Action is what reshapes identity. And purposeful action, the kind fueled by vision, not urgency, becomes the bridge between who you are and who you are becoming. I remember the first time I dared to speak my dream out loud. My voice trembled, my logic screamed, my fear handed me a dozen reasons to wait, but something inside said, "Take the step anyway." I did. And the second step was easier. The third became natural. Soon the fear that once governed my life had no place to stand, not because it disappeared, but because I stopped feeding it silence. That is what action does. It starves fear and nourishes courage. People stay stuck because they live in their heads. They analyze every possibility. They write, delete, rewrite their future before ever taking a breath toward it. But no amount of thinking will replace the wisdom earned by doing. A flawed step taken with heart is worth more than 1,000 perfect plans never lived. Perfection is the mask of fear. Action is the face of faith. The key is not to move faster. It is to move with meaning. Purposeful action means you are not acting to escape discomfort, but to expand your future. It means asking, does this step align with who I want to be? If the answer is yes, take it, even if it is small, especially if it is small. Every great leap begins as a whisper of movement. You do not need to rebuild your life in a day. You need to begin the rebuild with one brick and place it with intention. Here is a simple practice to rewire this habit. Each morning, identify one meaningful action that moves your life forward. Write it down. Commit to completing it before the day ends. Not 5 tasks, not a whole plan. One action that carries your energy toward purpose. Do it regardless of your mood. Do it especially when you do not feel like it. That is how you teach your mind I act, because I decide, not because I feel like it. Let me be honest. There will be days when fear feels louder than reason. Days when comfort seduces you back into numbness. On those days, remember this action is not just physical, it is spiritual. It is how you prove to yourself that you are more than your doubts, that your destiny matters more than your delay, that even one step forward breaks the cycle of self-abandonment. Eventually, your relationship with action changes. It becomes who you are, not what you force. You begin to trust your decisions. You stop waiting for signs and start becoming the signal. You realize that momentum is not gifted, it is earned. And when you live in motion, fear no longer holds the same weight, because now you have evidence. Evidence that you are capable, resilient, committed. And no one can take that from you. So I ask you now, what is one action you have been avoiding? What is one step you could take today that would move your life from intention to transformation? Share it in the comments. Let your decision inspire someone else who is still stuck in silence. And if this message moved you, send it forward. There is someone right now who needs this nudge. Subscribe to stay connected. This path is built one purposeful action at a time, and you are already walking it. Chapter 9. The Rebirth of Identity Through Repetition. Somewhere along the way, you were told who you were. Maybe not in words, but in looks, in silence, in expectations. You were told you were too much, or not enough, that you were the smart one, or the quiet one, or the one who always messes up, and you believed it, not because it was true, but because it was repeated, over and over until it became the mirror you used to see yourself. But mirrors can lie, and when they do not just distort your image, they distort your identity. The 9th habit that rewires your mind is this: repetition used consciously can resurrect the truth of who you are. You are not your past, your labels, your mistakes, or your fears, but you become what you repeat. The mind does not judge its records. It memorizes emotion. It memorizes language. It memorizes patterns. And so if you repeat doubt, you become it. If you repeat courage, you become it. If you repeat procrastination, that becomes your rhythm. If you repeat integrity, that becomes your foundation. The mind is programmable, and repetition is the code. When I first learned this, it changed everything. I stopped waiting for confidence to find me and started building it one repetition at a time. I chose new phrases, new standards, new actions. I repeated them before I believed them. I said things like, I show up no matter what I am capable of. Hard things I do not abandon myself. At first it felt like a lie, but repetition made it real, not overnight, but gradually, steadily, until the old voice, the one that whispered doubt, was replaced by a new one that spoke like a leader. The mistake most people make is they wait to feel before they act, but you do not need to feel confident to practice courage. You need to act and let the repetition train your nervous system to trust you again. Your identity is not built in a single moment of inspiration. It is built in the small, unseen moments when no one is watching. When you rise without applause. When you speak truth to yourself in a room full of fear. When you do what you said you would do again and again until it becomes who you are. Let me be practical. Pick one identity you are ready to grow into. Maybe it is, I am a disciplined person. Maybe it is, I am a loving partner. Maybe it is, I am a builder, a finisher, a leader. Now choose one behavior that matches that identity. Just one. And repeat it daily. That is how you cast votes for your future self. Every repetition is a ballot. Every habit is a statement. Over time, those votes stack. And suddenly you wake up no longer acting like that person. You are that person. Why is this so hard? Because repetition requires patience. And we are addicted to instant. We want fireworks. But rewiring is subtle. It is not a shout. It is a whisper repeated so consistently that it becomes the soundtrack of your life. Most people quit too soon, not because they are weak, but because they never understood how long it takes to unlearn what was never true in the first place. But if you stay with it, if you keep speaking the truth, showing up, practicing, there will come a day when the old voice no longer fits. And that day is your rebirth. Do not underestimate the power of small repetitions. A single sentence spoken every morning can shift your chemistry. A small act of courage practiced every week can rebuild your spine. A gentle discipline done daily can outgrow years of fear. That is the law of identity. You become what you repeat, but only if you repeat it on purpose. So I ask you, what are you currently repeating in your life, consciously or unconsciously, that is shaping who you are? What phrase, what behavior, what pattern? And what do you want to start repeating instead? Share your truth in the comments. Let the community become your witness. And if this chapter lit a fire in you, share it. You never know who is starving for a new identity and needs your courage to begin. Subscribe to stay in this rhythm. We are not building hype. We are building habits that last. Chapter 10. Choosing standards over feelings. There is a trap we all fall into, though few of us can see it while we are in it. It is the trap of waiting to feel like it. You wake up and your bed feels heavier than usual. You tell yourself, just 5 more minutes, but those 5 minutes cost you your momentum. You sit down to create something meaningful, but the feeling does not come, so you scroll, you snack, you stall. Days turn into patterns, patterns turn into identity, and you wonder why life feels like a loop. The answer is not hidden in motivation. The answer is in what you honor, because feelings are fleeting, but standards are who you decide to be. The 10th habit that rewires your mind is perhaps the most demanding, but also the most liberating. Live by the standards you set, not the feelings you wake up with. This one habit separates those who drift from those who rise. The ones who drift wait for inspiration. The ones who rise make inspiration irrelevant. They do not ask, do I feel like doing this today? They ask, what would the highest version of me do right now? And then they do it. I used to be a slave to my emotions. If I felt tired, I quit early. If I felt anxious, I avoided the challenge. If I felt doubt, I waited for confidence. My life was dictated by whatever temporary emotion had the loudest voice that day. And for a while, it felt justified. I need to listen to my body, I told myself. But really, I was negotiating with weakness. I was mistaking comfort for wisdom. Until one day I realized that greatness was not found in doing what you love. It was found in doing what you said you would do, especially when you did not feel like it. Your feelings are not your enemy. They are signals. They show up to be acknowledged, but they were never meant to be your master. You must become the kind of person who can feel fear and still take the step, who can feel tired and still move with excellence, who can feel unsure and still act with clarity. That kind of power is not born, it is trained, and the training is repetition through standard. Think about it. The most powerful people you know, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, they do not look strong because they have fewer emotions. They look strong because they have trained their mind to bow to their standard, not their mood. Their standard says, I move with integrity. Their standard says, I finish what I start. Their standard says, I do not need the world to cheer for me in order to lead myself forward. That is what makes them unshakable. And here is the truth. You already have standards. The question is, are they high enough to match the life you say you want? Because if your standard is, I do it only when I feel good, then your life will be small. But if your standard becomes, I do what is required of my future, regardless of how I feel today, then your life begins to expand in ways you cannot even predict. Your reputation with yourself becomes sacred. Your energy rises not from external hype, but from internal consistency. Let me make it practical. Pick one standard this week, one action that your future self demands of you. Maybe it is writing daily, showing up to the gym, speaking up when you usually shrink, reading instead of scrolling. Whatever it is, decide that it is non-negotiable. Anchor it not in your mood, but in your mission. Write it down, declare it, then protect it with your life, because it will shape your life. You will be tested. There will be days when you feel low, when everything in you wants to delay. That is the threshold. That is the moment when most people give up and the few rise. Do not look for comfort in those moments. Look for alignment. Ask yourself, what would my highest standard do right now? Then do that. Not perfectly, not effortlessly, just consistently. And that consistency will rewire your identity faster than any hack ever could. Eventually, you become someone different, someone solid, someone reliable, someone free not because life is easy, but because your standard never depends on ease. You become the person who no longer needs to feel like it in order to show up fully. And that, my friend, is when you become unstoppable. So I ask you now, what is one standard you will no longer negotiate with? Write it in the comments. Let the world hear what your next chapter demands. And if this spoke to your soul, share it. You never know who might be struggling in the storm of emotion, waiting for someone like you to remind them that there is another way. Subscribe to stay connected. Your future is not waiting for your feelings, it is waiting for your standard. Chapter 11. Feeding the mind that feeds you. You would never go a day without feeding your body. You would not skip food for a week and expect to move with strength, to think clearly, to show up fully. And yet so many people do this every single day to their mind. They wake up and ingest fear. They consume doubt. They digest comparison. And then they wonder why their thoughts betray them, why they feel stuck, small, scattered. The answer is not in their ability, it is in their appetite. Because what you feed your mind will either become your medicine or your poison. The 11th habit that rewires your mind is not flashy, but it is foundational. Nourish your mind like your future depends on it, because it does. If you keep feeding yourself mental junk food, you will keep creating a life of fatigue, confusion, and emotional inflammation. But if you begin each day with the right nutrients, truth, vision, wisdom, clarity, you will begin to build a mind that is not just strong, but sustainable. I used to believe that I could binge on negativity and then somehow produce positive results. I would wake up and scroll through news that drained me, people who triggered me, messages that made me question myself. And then I would try to sit down and be focused, inspired, effective. It did not work. Because the mind is a garden and weeds do not ask permission. They grow where you are not paying attention. And if you are not planting truth intentionally, you are unconsciously allowing lies to root. This habit is a commitment, a sacred discipline to choose what you consume and protect what you allow into your field of awareness. Start each morning with intention, not with noise, but with nourishment. That could be a few pages of a powerful book, a voice that reminds you of who you are, a journal prompt that wakes up your integrity. This is not about information, it is about calibration. You are tuning your mind to the frequency of your future, not your fear. Most people do not realize this. Your thoughts do not just come from inside. They are heavily influenced by what you expose yourself to repeatedly. The people you follow, the voices you listen to, the content you scroll, the stories you absorb, all of it becomes the language your subconscious repeats back to you when you are alone. If you do not like the way you speak to yourself, look at what you have been listening to. You must become a gatekeeper, ruthless about what stays and what goes. That might mean unfollowing people who drain you even if they are popular. That might mean turning off the news that triggers your anxiety. That might mean replacing gossip with books, replacing entertainment with education, replacing fear-based input with faith-based alignment. This is not about being perfect. It is about being intentional. Every single thing you allow into your mind is either pulling you closer to your power or pushing you further from it. And this habit compounds. The more you feed your mind the right nutrients, the more you crave them. You stop chasing shallow stimulation and start hungering for truth. You build a library inside yourself filled with answers, strength, resilience, so that when life tests you, you do not crumble. You draw from the well you have been filling day after day. Let me ask you, what did you feed your mind with today? Was it truth or was it trash? Was it nourishment or numbness? Be honest. Then decide what is one new mental nutrient you will begin consuming this week. A podcast, a book, a daily affirmation. Choose it. Share it in the comments. Let us build a table where only truth gets served. And if this message stirred something in you, share it. Someone out there is starving for strength and does not know where to find it. You might be their invitation. Subscribe so you never forget to feed the mind that feeds your life. Chapter 12. The Habit of Forgiving Forward. There is a weight that many people carry, though they hide it behind achievement, busyness, and strength. It is the weight of bitterness, a silent heaviness, a slow leak of joy. It does not always shout. Sometimes it sits quietly in the soul, disguised as coldness, hesitation, sarcasm, or control. But you feel it, the memory you cannot shake, the person you have not released, the version of yourself you still punish. And you wonder why peace feels so far. The answer is simple, though not easy. You cannot build a free future while dragging the chains of an unforgiven past. The 12th habit that rewires your mind is this: forgive not just backward, but forward. Forgive not just what was done, but what is still echoing inside you. Forgive the mistakes you made when you did not know better. Forgive the versions of yourself you outgrew. Forgive the silence you stayed in too long. And yes, forgive the people who hurt you not because they deserve it, but because your soul does. I once heard someone say, holding on to resentment is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to suffer. But I would go further. Holding on to resentment is like dragging a dead weight through every beautiful moment of your life and wondering why you are too tired to dance. I carried that weight for years. I called it loyalty to my pain. I thought if I forgive, I let them off the hook. But forgiveness is not letting them go free. It is setting yourself free from the cycle of reliving what you did not choose. Most people do not forgive because they are waiting for the other person to say sorry. But forgiveness is not a contract. It is a decision, one you make for your peace, your growth, your energy. When you forgive, you are not agreeing that what happened was okay. You are agreeing that what happened will not control you anymore. That decision rewires your emotional energy. It gives you back access to joy, trust, intimacy, and power. But let me be clear, forgiveness does not always mean reconciliation. You can forgive and still protect your boundaries. You can forgive and still walk away. Forgiveness is an internal reset, not an external compromise. You are not saying, "I welcome that pain again." You are saying, "I choose to stop reliving it." This habit is difficult because we think that remembering protects us. But memory without healing is just another way to keep bleeding. And your soul was not made to bleed forever. Your nervous system was not designed to stay in defense for a lifetime. You are not meant to wake up every day guarded, armored, and cold. That is survival. Forgiveness is how you move from survival to creation. And do not forget, sometimes the hardest person to forgive is yourself. For staying too long, for hurting others in your own confusion, for quitting on your potential. But that version of you, the one who was afraid, unsure, messy, deserves your compassion, not your lifelong punishment. You do not heal by rejecting who you were. You heal by embracing who you are now and choosing not to drag the old story into your next chapter. Here is how you begin. Pick one moment, one wound, one name that still haunts you. And say these words not because you feel ready, but because you are choosing to be. I release you. I release the pain. I release the version of me that was trapped in this. I choose peace. You may cry. You may resist. That is okay. This is not a performance. This is a process. But speak it anyway, and speak it again tomorrow, and again the next day, because repetition rewires. And freedom is not a feeling, it is a muscle you build through practice. Eventually, forgiveness becomes your default posture, not weakness, wisdom. You begin to live lighter. You begin to trust again, not blindly, but boldly. You begin to look in the mirror and see someone no longer trapped in the courtroom of regret. You see someone new, someone whole, someone free. So I ask you now, with all sincerity, who or what do you need to forgive in order to finally move forward? Share in the comments if you are ready. Speak it, because when you name the chain, you begin to break it. If this message reached the hidden place inside you, let it reach someone else too. Share it. You never know who is waiting for permission to let go. Subscribe to walk this healing journey with us. The next chapter is not about the pain. It is about the power you reclaim when you release it. The mindset reset. You have walked through fire, not the kind that burns skin, but the kind that burns illusions. You have confronted habits that held you hostage. You have seen the places where fear pretended to be protection. You have named your patterns, your stories, your silence. But this moment right here is where everything either transforms or resets to the familiar. Not because the knowledge was not enough, but because the application decides everything. You are not who you were when this journey began. You are not just a reader of new ideas, you are a holder of new standards. But standards mean nothing if you still flirt with the versions of you that crave permission to play small. This is not the chapter where we celebrate growth. This is the chapter where you make it permanent. The mindset reset is a vow, not to perfection, but to alignment. Every habit you have practiced, silence in the morning, responsibility for your emotions, speaking with truth, moving with purpose, forgiving what you once feared, all of these are bricks. But what you build next is not automatic. You must now ask the harder question, who will I never again pretend to be? Because that is the reset. Not what you are running toward, but what you are finished running from. It is time to clarify your standards. What do you no longer tolerate from yourself, from your thoughts, from your language, from your excuses? Do not make this poetic. Make it precise. I no longer tolerate lying to myself when I feel fear. I no longer tolerate being available to people who are committed to misunderstanding me. I no longer tolerate mistaking comfort for peace. These are not motivational quotes. They are boundaries that protect the person you have fought to become. You must also redefine what success means to you, not by the world's noise, but by your soul's truth. Is success peace? Is it alignment? Is it the courage to say no when everyone expects yes? Is it the discipline to wake up and honor your purpose, even when no one is watching? Define it, write it, speak it daily, because clarity of definition is the compass that guides your action when pressure clouds your path. This is also your moment to reset your rhythm. No more all or nothing, no more extremes. Progress is not a sprint, it is a sacred cadence. Build a routine that matches your future, not your fantasy. If you want to live aligned, then structure your days with rituals that protect your energy, your mind, your peace. That might mean 30 minutes of silence instead of scrolling. That might mean walking instead of numbing. That might mean creating instead of consuming. Simple, sacred, consistent. And now the final layer of this reset decision, not emotion, decision. Because the person who lives on the other side of this book is not waiting for the perfect moment. They are waiting for you to stop delaying your destiny. The mind will whisper, just one more day, just one more excuse, just one more version of who you used to be. But you are done with that. You are done watching your life from the sidelines, explaining your potential instead of embodying it. Stand up, literally if you must. Feel your spine straighten. Feel the weight fall off. Breathe deeply and say it aloud. This is who I am now. No explanation, no apology, just truth. The kind that shifts everything, not because it is loud, but because it is final. So here is your reflection. Write it, say it, live it. What is the one belief I must now bury forever? What is the one standard I must now live by without negotiation? What is the one decision I will no longer delay? Answer these in the comments. Let the world see the line you are drawing. And if this journey has brought you back to yourself, share it. Someone else is still lost in the fog, and your reset might be the light that saves them. Subscribe to this channel not for more noise, but for a rhythm of truth that will walk beside you as you become who you were always meant to be. The final call from knowing to becoming. This is it. The page where the past ends and the rest of your life begins, not because something external has changed, but because you have. You have read every word. You have nodded in silence, perhaps cried in private. You have seen parts of yourself you tried to forget, and visions of yourself you are ready to become. But none of it matters, none, unless you do one thing now, embody. This is the final call. Not to more learning, more waiting, more preparing, but to the raw, unshakable decision to live as the version of yourself you have glimpsed in moments of clarity. Not once in a while, not when it is easy, every single day. Do not let this book be another voice in the crowd. Let it be the voice that cut through the noise and reminded you that you were never powerless. You were never broken. You were never too late. You were simply distracted from your truth. And now you remember. Now you know. Now you become. You become the one who speaks power into silence, who creates in the face of doubt, who walks away from comfort when it no longer aligns, who chooses presence over performance, who builds without applause, who forgives without permission, who acts without delay. That is who you are now, not because you say it, but because you live it. You will still feel fear. Good. Let it remind you that you are growing. You will still fall short. That is the tax for reaching higher. But you will not abandon yourself anymore. You will not shrink to fit rooms you were meant to expand. You will not explain your standards to people committed to misunderstanding them. You will move different. You will speak different, because your mind is different. And to those watching you, some will not understand. Some will mock your peace. Some will resist your clarity. Let them. You are not here to please the past. You are here to become the proof that transformation is real. You are here to live as a mirror to others of what is possible when someone stops pretending and starts becoming. This book gave you habits. It gave you language. It gave you tools. but the one thing it cannot give you is what you must choose on your own embodiment. To wake up tomorrow and live like the standard is already set. To walk through your world like your future depends on your presence, because it does. So stand tall, my friend. Take one last breath as the version of you that merely learned. Exhale. And now inhale deep, steady as the version of you that leads, not someday, not when it feels right, now. This is your time, not because the world is ready, but because you are. Now go. Live it, all of it, with fire in your spirit, with purpose in your steps, with truth in your bones. And when the world asks what changed, you will smile not with arrogance, but with quiet certainty and say, I finally remembered who I am, and I never forgot again.